Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Today's luncheon will focus on the core theme of this luncheon, investing in the next generation, forging global collaboration for inclusive and resilient development, and conduct in-depth discussions. Next, please join me to welcome Dr. Mabel Miao, Secretary General and co-founder of CCG, to introduce today's speakers and panelists and guests. Let's welcome Dr. Mabel Miao.
Your Excellencies, Ambassadors, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, dear Amma, dear Henry, dear all, it is my great pleasure to welcome you all to the 20th CCG VIP Luncheon. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. This 20th, how time flies. The CCG VIP Luncheon series, initiated and hosted by the Center for China and Globalization, CCG, has become an important platform for dialogue and exchange. It brings together diplomats, international organizations, leading enterprises, and academic experts to share insights on China's development and foster mutual understanding and cooperation in an increasingly interconnected world, of course, including global governance as well. This time, we co-hosted with UNICEF China, with the team of AMA, to conduct today's luncheon. Today's luncheon is particularly timely as it focuses on investing in the next generation, forging a new global framework for inclusive and resilient development. As the world enters a period of profound transformation marked by rising inequality, intensifying climate pressure, complex geopolitical dynamics, and rapid demographic shifts, these converging global challenges are redefining development trajectories across nations. In this context, early childhood development, particularly during the critical 0 to 3 age window, has increasingly emerged as a decisive foundation for long-term societal resilience and inclusive growth. At this historic juncture, a number of pressing questions call for comprehensive and in-depth discussions. To explore these essential questions, CCG, together with UNICEF China, will convene the 20th CCG VIP Luncheon, bringing together leading representatives from international organizations, government ministries, and private sectors, academia, and the diplomatic community. I would like to extend a special welcome to our distinguished guests. We are privileged to have diplomatic representatives from 19 countries, including 4 ambassadors with us today. Specifically, we have invited the ambassador of Estonia, the ambassador of Fiji, the ambassador of Iceland, and the ambassador of Latvia to join us. In addition, diplomatic representatives from the Embassy of Argentina, Embassy of Brazil, Embassy of Canada, Embassy of Croatia, EU delegation, Embassy of Indonesia, Embassy of Italy, Embassy of Malta, Embassy of Netherlands, Embassy of Pakistan, Embassy of Portugal, Embassy of Turkey, Embassy of UAE, and Embassy of Vietnam are also participating in our event. Welcome you all. We are also honored to welcome the representative from the Asia Development Bank to join us today. Moreover, we are privileged to be joined by government officials and academic experts from different institutions as well. Furthermore, today's luncheon features participation from leading companies, including from Brazil, Embraer, and Catching Shadows. Last but not least, this presence of media representatives from outlets including CCTV, China Daily, Xinhua News Agency will ensure their participation and the dissemination of today's important discussions. Thank you all once again for your support and engagement. We look forward a fruitful and inspiring luncheon. Now, without further ado, let us begin with our opening remarks from Dr. Henry Huiyao Wang, who is the founder and president of Center for China and Globalization, and also former Counselor of State China State Council. Welcome.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Miao. So, dear Amakobe, and also from UNICEF, and also Your Excellencies, and also Professor Tang, Professor Liu Guoen, and distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. So it's really a great honor. We started here again for our 20th, which means in the last 20 months, every month we held a CCG VIP Luncheon. And today's CCG VIP Luncheon is in conjunction, in partnership with UNICEF, the largest UN operation in China, basically. We're very honored to have the chief representative of UN, UNICEF, Madame Amakobe Sande, with us today, so, and also other UNICEF colleagues. So it's really a great honor that apart from the geopolitical and all those hot issues that we've been talking, but today we would like to really bring some practical and also more down to earth and more important issue, actually, to talk about investing in the next generation for a resilient future. So that is really what we are going to talk about, very, very important subject. So it's really a distinct honor to welcome all of you to this 20th VIP Luncheon. But today, I think, is also because not only because we have so many issues, but also we have actually want to shift our gaze from immediately geopolitical shift to a long-term horizon, which is to pin the future on the next generation, forging global collaborations, and also for inclusive and resilient development. So at this historic juncture, I think it's so important to talk about this future generation with us in a global sense, but also with UNICEF, with such a immense knowledge and activities. It can be a best occasion to talk about that. First of all, just highlight a little bit of China milestone achievement of child development. We cannot discuss future of global child development without looking at China's progress. According to the latest data from 2024, China has delivered a remarkable, score card that reflects a historical leap in both health and education. So China's, in terms of infant mortality and under 5 mortality, has greatly reduced to a historical low level. And so those figures firmly place China among the world advanced upper middle income nations. So you can see China has done this very well, and not just lifting 800 million people out of poverty, but in terms of children and infant, China has done so well in terms of achieving those high standards. Simultaneously, China has made great strides in education equality. In 2024, the gross enrollment ratio in preschool education reached 92%, which is very high, with coverage of inclusive kindergarten reached 91.61. So that's also very important. The Chinese government is also giving a lot of support to the kindergarten education in China. So those figures represent a massive step towards universal access. However, as China faces demographic shift, as we know, China is aging. So how to really encouraging more, births, actually, encouraging more population growth is still a challenging issue. So our challenge now moves from coverage to quality, and particularly in prioritizing the critical 0 to 3 age window to ensure every child has a fair start. So just just some highlight of that. But second point I want to mention is UNICEF. It's really a great partner, a steadfast partner for China's journey in bringing up the children's the health and education and all the related activities. I would like to pay special tribute to the UNICEF. For decades, UNICEF has been more than a donor. It has been a trusted partner and a pioneer in innovation, bring a lot of ideas, a lot of practice, from assisting China in building a vast network of child directors to support vulnerable children, to introduce the scientific concept of early childhood development to rural areas. The UNICEF work has helped to bridge the last mile of social services. We deeply appreciate the leadership of Ms. Amakobe, Sande, and her team for not only advocating those issues, but also for turning the policy into tangible action on the ground. So this is really appreciated, and we thank UNICEF very much for the leadership in this aspect in China. So finally, I just want to say that as we look for the post-2030 agenda, also we're looking at the next 15th five-year plan of China. We're facing a world of accelerating climate change, of course, technology disruption, and also uncertainty in many fronts. So invest in children is our most effective strategy to build a long-term society resilience. So today we are really privileged also to join by three top experts, particularly Madame Amakobe. So I would like to give us a keynote, and then followed by our two distinguished Professor Tang and Professor Guoen. And so we really appreciate that this exchanges among our audience here for our lunch guests is really going to be very interesting to stimulating and also enlightening to hear how China looks at and also UNICEF look at the children's development and relevant development for the future. So which is the most important, brightest and youngest and part of the future that we have to really cultivate and look after. So without further ado, maybe I'll introduce our next speaker, the keynote speaker, Madame Amakobe Sande, and she's the UNICEF representative in China. So Ms. Amakobe Sande provides a leadership and a strategic direction of UNICEF, and also liaison with the government of China, and also he look after the government of China country program in delivering results for children. She brings to the role of 30 years experience and expertise in international development, humanitarian coordination, policy analysis, advocacy, resource mobilization, and partnership. Prior joining to UNICEF, she was the resident and humanitarian coordinator in Eritrea, coordinated 21 agencies in supporting the implementation of sustainable development goals. Very rich experience. Madame Sande also led UNAIDS as a country director in Beijing, as well as in Uganda, Malawi, and Lesotho. Prior to joining the UN, she worked in the renowned international organizations such as Oxfam and Action Aid International, where she served as a deputy country director in post-genocide Rwanda, country representative in Zambia, regional program manager for the Middle East, Eastern Europe, and former Caucasus, countries like Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan, and in the same function covering South Africa region. And just prior to joining the United Nations, Ms. Sande was the director for Action Aid International Southern Africa Partnership Program. So she has a vast experience. I also remember during the COVID, Ms. Sande has actually was the acting UN coordinator in China, and she actually come to a CCG event that we launched, the Global Young Leader Dialogue, and she spoke on behalf of the UN agencies in China. So very, very, very supportive. And also Ms. Sande has served on a number of boards and on advisory committees, including the Global Campaign for Microbial Sites and the African Public Health Network, the Southern Africa AIDS Information Services, and the China AIDS Fund, and a non-government organization. So many impressive social posts. Ms. Sande received a master's degree in development studies from the Australia National University in Canberra, and also a bachelor's degree in international relations from United States International University in Nairobi, Kenya. So without further ado, let's welcome Ms. Sande to give us a keynote.
Good afternoon, and it's such a pleasure to be here. There's something special about the 20th, the number 20, and being able to partner with my dear friends, Doctors Henry and Mabel. Let me also recognize their excellencies in the room today, as well as friends of both CCG and UNICEF, as well as my co-speakers this afternoon, Mr. Tang and Professor Liu Guoen. It's so humbling to see the participation at the lunch today. Thank you for making the time. So, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we meet at a moment of profound transformation. Economies shifting under technological disruption, societies grappling with demographic change, the global system strained by inequality and geopolitical tension. And in this context, one question I think rises above all others. How should the world invest in the next generation? And this is not just a matter of sentiment. It's a matter of strategy. It's a matter of economics. And it's also a matter of survival. And Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the science is clear. There is no period in human development as powerful as the first 1,000 days of life. In these early years, the brain forms more than 1 million neuron connections every second, building the architecture for cognition, for emotional regulation, for creativity, and indeed for resilience. It starts there. Beyond the science, the economic of investing in the early years was established, and clearly so, by the Nobel laureate James Heckman. And he found through his studies that every dollar invested in early childhood yields a return of about $7 to $13 in economic benefits in the long term, more than any other stage of development in the human life cycle. The Lancet Commission on Early Childhood Development went even further and informed us that children who receive nurturing care, nutrition, health, responsive caregiving, and early learning enter school more ready, they earn more as adults, and they contribute more to society. And so really, the conclusion is simple. The earliest years are not preparation for life, they are life. And if we fail then, we fail the next generation. We fail future generations. Let me also talk about a second window of opportunity that is equally powerful and most often misunderstood: adolescence. Biologically, adolescence is the second moment of neuroplasticity, synaptic pruning, identity formation, and also social cognition. economically, it is the conversion point where potential becomes productivity. And this is when societies transform early investment into innovation, enterprise, and leadership. Yet globally, and let me just cite a few examples to show how we are missing that window of opportunity, second opportunity. Globally, we have a learning crisis defined by the World Bank and UNESCO in their tracking of SDG 4 on education as learning poverty. The term learning poverty is an interesting one. It combines two indicators. It combines schooling deprivation and learning deprivation into a single measure that looks at the ability to read and understand a simple text by the age of 10. Many of you have 10-year-olds. Before COVID-19, learning poverty affected 53% of children in low and middle income countries. That figure, after the pandemic and related disruptions, rose to 70%. In other words, 70% children by the age of 10 cannot read or understand a basic text. This now affects 250 million children, 100 million of them in Africa. Furthermore, today, nearly 1 billion adolescents lack access to skills aligned with global labor markets. Many more see a worrying disconnect between what they learn and what their future actually demands. And so, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the stakes are high. If childhood builds the foundation, adolescence builds the architecture of society. A young person with access to digital training, vocational skills, or entrepreneurship pathways contributes to nations' competitiveness. A young person without those tools, conversely, becomes trapped in cycles of exclusion and then in informal work or all kinds of instability. We have less than 5 years left to achieve the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, and the truth is sobering. 250 million children under the age of 5 are at risk of not reaching their full developmental potential. When children are viewed as national assets, rather than just mere beneficiaries, societies become more prosperous, more cohesive, and more resilient. And so we must move beyond the old dichotomy, the dichotomy of social policy versus economic policy. We must treat human development in the same way we treat, for example, infrastructure development. When we build a highway, we expect returns over 30 years. When we invest in the mind of a child, the returns can last up to 70 years. And so a coherent new framework should incorporate perhaps 4 pillars. The first must be universal foundations in early childhood, consisting of health, nutrition, early learning, and parental support. The second, quality education systems that equip students for the future and do not reproduce inequalities from preschooling to secondary. Third, we need to create adolescents to employment pathways, including through TVETs, apprenticeships, mentoring programs, digital and entrepreneurial skills, the skills for the future. And finally, we must have social protection systems that are enabling, and they should include child benefits, they should include parental leave, as well as access for migrant families. And we shouldn't forget disability services as well. China has demonstrated the power of strategic human capital development. It has lifted more than 800 million people from poverty, built the world's largest industrial system. And in doing that over the past 40 or so years, it has made remarkable achievements in child survival and development, and in the development of its young people. Dr. Henry gave you the statistics. I won't go into them again. And it did this with clear sequencing, with long-term thinking, pragmatic investments, prioritizing human capital development as a foundational element of its economic strategy. Today, China faces a different challenge: an aging population, declining birth rates, and the rising cost of care. It is now investing in emerging areas which some see as social spending, but really they are about future labor policy, future productivity, and future competitiveness, as well as resilience. Consider with me the priority investments that are already emerging here in China. Expanding childcare services, expanding access to high-quality preschool education, introducing a nationwide universal child grant, addressing the hukou, China's household registration system, and the related barriers for better integrating the children of migrant workers. Expanding investments in STEM education and nurturing innovation capacity and youth employability to prepare young people for the future economy amidst demographic pressures. These are not isolated reforms, ladies and gentlemen. These are macroeconomic levers. There are, of course, a few challenges. Again, Dr. Henry spoke about them, around uneven access and quality, particularly between rural and urban areas. And we should indicate, of course, that rapid development and technological advancement have taken place at a cost to children, at a cost to families. And so new challenges have emerged with that as well. But there is a story to tell, and it is one of political will. It is one of human capital prioritization. It's one of robust implementation and monitoring, as well as innovation and achieving scale, and doing so at speed. China's opportunity is not only domestic, it is global. And UNICEF is working with China to share the lessons that have been learnt here through South-South and triangular cooperation. Let me give you a few quick examples. With China, we are working to support early childhood development programs in Africa. With China, we are looking to expand public digital learning platforms, an initiative with the Ministry of Education to promote high-quality, inclusive national digital learning platforms for children in Africa. With China, we are expanding access and quality of maternal and child health services across Africa, Asia, and the Pacific, and setting up centers of excellence. There is one just about to go up in Ethiopia. With China, we are supporting technical and vocational education and mentoring linked to real labor markets. This includes funding, particularly from SIDCA, as well as practical, quality assured by UNICEF, technical exchanges, and peer-to-peer learning that is rooted in results. China is also keen to learn from others. It's a two-way exchange. UNICEF has facilitated exchange visits for senior Chinese officials with several OECD countries and other developing countries as well on issues such as inclusive education, supporting children with disabilities, addressing common challenges around online safety for children, and the opportunities as well as challenges with rapid AI development. On areas such as social and emotional learning, but also strengthening justice systems so that they are truly protecting children and acting in the interest of the child. And allow me to recognize the excellent support of the Embassy of Estonia, which worked with UNICEF to support a senior Chinese delegation to go and learn about their early childhood practices. Similarly, with the support of the Embassy of Iceland, and again, Your Excellency, you're here, we worked together with experts from Iceland and shared Iceland's experience on justice in the child protection sector. Again, thank you, Your Excellency. But similar exchanges have been organized with France, with Switzerland, with Mexico, with Costa Rica, with Belgium, with Bulgaria, Romania, Moldova, Finland, Norway, Estonia, Spain, Italy, Croatia, South Africa, and the list goes on and on. This is the global opportunity I was speaking about. Let me speak without euphemism. A nation that fails to invest in children is not saving money. It is choosing to pay a far greater cost, a cost in lost potential, reduced economic growth, and increased social burden. The logic is as elegant as it is uncompromising. Invest early, invest consistently, invest in capability, invest with future purpose. Leaders, ladies and gentlemen, are not remembered for managing the present. They are remembered for shaping the future. And so we stand at a crossroads. One path leads to aging societies, a shrinking labor force, and widening inequality. But another leads to sustained productivity, shared prosperity, and with that, resilient communities. We know what works. The science is clear. The economics is compelling. So let us build a world where investment in children is recognized, not as mere compassion, but as a strategy and as the defining infrastructure of the century ahead. I thank you.
Thank you, Madam Sande, for your excellent, comprehensive, and also very informative and also very enlightening keynote. It's really important that you highlighted the importance of investing in the next generation, but also you highlight a lot of challenges, opportunities, and also the benefit that we're going to have for the next generation. Particularly, like you talk about also related with China, like a migrant. You know, I mean, I see we have a 300 million migrant in the cities, but their children, should have the equal access. That's something I think China still needs to improve. Where I see a lot of school is closing down because of the less children were born, but then many of the rural children in the city, they cannot have access to those schools. So that's something hukou system should be really abolished as soon as possible to make more progress. So again, a lot of progress being made, a lot of experience has been learned, and also I thank all those countries being contributing to this great process. Now, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Professor Tang. And so Tommy is an old friend for 20, 30 years, I think, at least. Tommy is also a vice president of CCG, but he has many other important roles to play. He actually, one of the class of 1997 or 1998, but 78, graduated in 1982. And I went to study at the University of Illinois and at Urban Champaign in 1984. So one of the very early turtles. He had a PhD degree in 1989, and also joined the Development Research Center, ADB. We have an ADB representative here today as well, in charge of East Asian Economic Affairs and Regional Economic Cooperation. So he has many contributions there. He was in 2000 he was appointed as the chief economist and in resident mission at the ADB office in China. So a very important role. And then also he was become a deputy secretary general of China Development Research Foundation of a Development Research Center of the State Council in 2007. So and also since December of 2010, he became executive vice chairman of China's Social Entrepreneurial Foundation, and also the president of Youchange, New Philanthropy University. So he's really a very important role played. But also more than that, Tang and I, we were colleagues at China State Councilor's office. So he's a former State Council, Councilor of the State Council. So I think Tang also has done a lot of activities, I think, while he was leading this Youchange Foundation, and does a lot of children education, e-learning, and many things. So I saw his steps everywhere. And so I'd like to invite Dr. Tang to give your speech, please. Let's welcome.
Thank you, Harry, and distinguished guests, a lot of my friends here. And today, give me assignment, please. Yeah, the first page. The give me assignment is talk about the early childhood development, particularly talk about the policy and the civil society involvement. Next. So we will discuss three points. First, we discuss about the status, what's current status for those early childhood, the situation. Secondly, let's see what's the new government policy. And thirdly, what's contribution by civil society. Next. So let's see. Currently, one of the biggest problems in Chinese economy or society is quickly, sharply declining in birth rate. Next, if you take a look at the data, and up to 2016, China every year, and China have 18 million newborn children, but now not yet coming back. Yeah. Now we reduce by half, and for like 8 million, and from 16 million reduce 8 million less than 10 years. So reduced by half. And every year we have people died, right? And newborn minus people died. In fact, start from 2002, and China population start to reducing. And now every year, Chinese population is reducing now. And people doing a long-term projection next. You can see that we're here, but depend on different scenarios. And the worst scenario to 2000, and China only have 600 million to 700 million people, right? And even in the medium, and we will be around 1 billion population. So it's really a sharp reducing of the population. Next, right? And why people worried reducing population, right? And recall it, in China history, in 1960s, China only have 700 million population, and those days we start to worry. So we started birth control in 1960s when we only have 700 million people. When we have 1 billion people, and in early 1980s, we have to apply one-child policy, and very strict one. Now we have 1.4 billion people. We worry we do not have enough population. So it looks like very controversial, right? But why people worry about the population reduce? Because what we watch, what's happened in Japan. You take a look. And this is the Japan's population growth and reduced, right? And the other one is China, just 20 years behind, right? And most likely we will follow Japan's pattern in terms of population. Population also sharp reduced, right? You just a little bit behind the 20 years. But why so much worry about Japan? If you take a look at next. Economic growth, right? Japan's economic growth was very high before, when up to 1990s, and the growth rate sharply reduced, around 2% every year, many years, even less than 2%. Why? Several reasons. Why? Because of the real estate bubble, all sorts of things. But one of the key area which caused the kind of problem is demographic situation reducing, population reduced. So people worry about that. Maybe we were facing similar problem. But those points is debating among economists locally, right? Because why? Some people said that worry in Japan, we will follow the same part of Japan's growth. The other group said, don't worry, we have AI now, right? And because we have this robot, nowadays 50% of robots all used in China. And we have this new thing called the AI agent. That impact to the job opportunity probably more than robot, because that will replace all those white-collar jobs, right? AI agent. So we are worried about in future we do not have enough job for the young people. So if the population reduced, maybe good things, right? So that among people is debating, and the mainly problem is we have to have a good income distribution system. And even old people can consume if they have enough income. So that's another issue. But in any case, the population become one of the major factors to impact China's future growth. Okay, but nothing we can change this trend, right? Government start to doing something, right? Starting this year, a few years ago we stopped this one-child policy, and now we even give subsidies have the family have kids, right? So everything's changing. But for the global experience, for the developed country, and you can reduce a little bit, but the trend, reduce the population trend, you cannot change it. Okay, so next, then we talk about children. Then we have less children, but if children's better educated, better used, get a better life, it's not bad, right? But among the every year children reducing, the number of children reducing, about 40% those kids stay in rural area. So main concern in urban, more or less, do not worry. Parents, they pay very much attention on that. But in rural area, have a problem. So what we worry about the early childrenhood problem is mainly we'll talk in the rural. Next. And they are significant, though Henry mentioned. On average, Chinese education, children care, all things good, right, in terms of number. But the difference between urban and rural, not only for the kindergarten or for teachers, also for the resource, hardware, everything is quite different. Next. If you take a look at some of the data, right, that shows those proportion of family in difficult situation for raising their kids or have educated kids. You can say nationwide it's no problem, but for those family in the poverty area, for those family used to be a poverty family, blah, 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 that still have a very high proportion. The kids have a problem. Next. And if you take a look development delayed among the kids, nationwide is 5%. But you can see the central area, poverty area, northwest area, southwest area, much higher than a problematic problem, much higher than the national average. So this is a problem. China have to address it. I fully agree with Madame Sande. She gave many policy recommendations. I think that should be applied, particularly apply to those rural area and rural area in the western region and for those poverty area. Next. So government start to have a concern this reduce population and also the gap between different locations of kids getting different treatment. So government will have many new policies. Next, one of the main policy, as we know that they start to have a core policy mainly to subsidize, to pushing, have a supported family which should have more kids, right? And government to support. Next, and by this year, every family nationwide, if you have kids, you're getting $300 per month, $3,600, $3,600 per yuan, yuan for that. Right. This is just a beginning. Maybe in future we'll have more. So encourage people have more children. This 3,600 yuan is not a big deal, particularly in urban area, but they do play an important role in rural area. Aside from that, next, government also put more money, more resource to improve of condition in rural area, kindergartens, early children care center, and so on and so forth. So make a big effort to reduce the gap. Next. So in the meantime, and civil society also play very important role. Let's see what civil society contribute. Now, what we did is what we try to fill the gap between the government service, especially focus on the rural and underdeveloped area. And this is civil society to work. For very beginning, we're doing the piloting. I recall about 15, 20 years ago, I working in China, many agencies, and we doing the piloting, and we doing this teaching for work. Those days we do not have enough kindergarten, but we hire the teachers which just go there instead of have a big kindergarten, but the teacher moving around, and one teacher can take care of 4 or 5 villages and that type of things. And now there's more activity there. Let me take a look at some cases. Next. Well, it's China Development Research Foundation, which is leading agency in those areas. I used to be a deputy secretary general there 10 years ago, and they working for many, many new projects. Next. Yeah, one project called the China Reach Program. Next. China Reach Program means China Rural Education and Child Healthy Program. And what we're doing that, we hire somebody as expertise. Every week, they have to visit those rural families to give us some suggestions, training their parents, mainly mom, and how to take care about the early children. And we have a training program. We hire many of the young people, give some training. They move to those families every week, spend 1 or 2 hours to have a discussion, give suggestions, and that kind of activity. Next. And currently, we're running in 24 counties and in the 10 provinces, mainly the poverty area, now currently cover over 70,000 kids or families, and all those activities moving around. Next. So in that contribution sum, we would like to expanding many scholars, including in the country. Every month we donate some money to support this program. Next. So this is the area, poverty area, or sort of directors to go to those areas to help the parents to develop new skill. Next. So some the foreigners getting involved, and they really appreciate and really happy about this program. Next. So this is for child, family, home visitors. This is that teacher called the home visitors, and all those things getting benefit for this program. Now we would like to expanding this program, and so far still piloting. We want to show to the government, want to show the public, say that kind of intervention quite effective, and also could really addressing this problem in rural area. Next. Also, this is another foundation which I'm directly involved, called the Youchange Foundation, China Social Entrepreneur Foundation. We are mainly training a young teacher, so we call the Green Piper program. It's a young teachers supporting program with many agencies. But this one, so far we training next. Right. So far, we are running for 200,000, we're training 200,000 of teachers, among them about 5,000 as kindergarten teacher, and improve. This is internet-based, the whole year training, every day 1 hour, and we invited the best trainers in the country, then give the training, they will improve the skill. Next, this is the one area which in Guizhou area, and next, this is the kids. They are teachers getting training and they're getting better program for their kindergarten. Next. So other case is Rising the Future project. This is another called the Magic Bean Public Welfare Foundation. This is another foundation. They're doing a very similar program. It's mainly addressing the children age 0 to 3 and give some trainings. Next. The project provides systematic trainings and teach the teacher how to really addressing 0 to 3 years kids program, and this is give a lot of supporting in those areas. China's kindergarten usually is about 3 to 4 to 6, but 0 to 3 years is still not that popular. So this special program to help the early children, the program, yes. So this project getting a lot of outcomes, and so far 90% of those rural families getting covered, and many receive weekly training and so on. And getting next, getting award, got the global acknowledgement, getting award from many of them. So this program really help. And this also still not that big scale, but because it's success, getting attention from government, getting attention by enterprise. They want to doing this ESG. In the ESG S part, they want to support. So gradually, they will become a bigger program. Next. So in this sense, China, in terms of early children's situation, will change dramatically. Government did try to doing some program. The main effort probably is in the rural area, particularly in those which poverty area or used to be poverty area, and that effort have to make not only by government, also by civil societies, by NGOs, by enterprise, and by international organization like UNICEF. We need a lot of new concept. We need more resource. And hopefully when the population reduced and we have a teacher can more focus on the quality of our education, when the population reduce, have a lot of negative impact, but good side is we have a more resource to put to every children, and hopefully we can make those in rural, in poverty area will become matching what's happened in urban area, and hopefully after many years that situation will be improved. Thank you very much.
Well, great, excellent, Dr. Tang, and it was really a very fascinating highlight of the general situation demographically in China and what are the challenges and opportunities. But also, you have used the vivid examples of case studies, philanthropy works. So that is really great. So thank you again, Dr. Tang, for your great sharing, and also you are a practitioner working in this field too. So congratulations again. Yeah. Thank you. So now I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Professor Liu Guoen. And Professor Liu Guoen is Peking University Boya Distinguished Professor of Economics, and he's also the Dean of Peking University Institute for Global Health and Development, and a fellow of the Chinese Academy of Medicine. So he's very hands-on and had many areas on this field. Professor Liu also serves as the director of Peking University China Center for Health Economic Research and chair of the academic committee of Peking University Institute of Educational Economics. So he also holds many distinguished roles in public services, including co-organized U.S.-China Track 2 Dialogue on Health. So you have a great friend, Peter, sitting beside you there. China State Council Health Reform Advisory Commission and associate editor for SCI Academic Journal of Value Health, and also Health Economics and China Economic Quarterly. So you have many academic editorial roles there as well. And also editor-chief of China Journal for Pharmaceutical Economics, quite a few. Professor Liu obtained his PhD in economics in 1991 from the Graduate School Center at the City University of New York, and under the supervision of Professor Michael Grossman. So, well trained. So, he has also completed his postdoctoral training in health economics from Harvard University, and the supervision Professor William Shaw. So, I mean, I'm not going to get into detail of all those great supervisors, but again, I know Professor Liu is a great expert in the health, in the also related with children, but also in general, a top expert in China on health development and health education, and a health policy recommender. So, without further ado, I'd like to invite Guoen, to give your speech for this important VIP luncheon. Thank you. That's welcome.
Thank you, Harry, and Madam Sande, for inviting me to join this great luncheon event. I have to admit that I like this topic quite a lot. Investing in future generations. When we talk about investing in future generations, it's easy to frame it as a more moral choice. But today, I want to challenge that narrative. Investing in future generations is not a choice at all. It is a survival imperative for human sapiens. The decisions we make right now, how we value resources, how we shape our economies, and how we respect the planetary limits will determine whether tomorrow's generations inherit a world that we can sustain human life. Over the past few years, as we all grappled with climate change, biodiversity loss, and resource scarcity, it becomes increasingly clear that our current path is unsustainable. But despair isn't a choice or option. Instead, we need a clear, actionable framework to guide our choices. Today, I want to share 4 pillars that tie our present actions to humanity's long-term continuity, and especially introduce a innovative tool that may help turn these pillars into measurable progress. I have not prepared slides for you about what I will introduce to you, but I have about 9 minutes long video clip that can be played later after my speech if time permits. Okay? Pillar 1. Okay? Who are the future generations? They're not abstract strangers, nor someone else's children, and certainly not a distant concept we can afford to ignore. future generations are the continuity of human sapiens, period. Think about it. Every innovation we celebrate, every tradition we cherish, every scientific breakthrough we build on is a gift from those who came before us. They invested in education, in infrastructure, in knowledge, so that we could thrive. Now it's our turn to pay that forward. Investing in future generations isn't about sacrificing for others. It's about preserving the legacy that defines us as humans. To neglect their needs is erode the very idea of ourselves, extended through time. This isn't just a philosophical point. It's a practical one. The choices we make today, whether to exploit non-renewable resources or protect it, whether to prioritize short-term growth or long-term sustainability, will shape the world our children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren inhabit. And make no mistake, their fate is our fate. The survival of Homo sapiens depends on our ability to see beyond the next year, the next decade, and indeed far beyond our own lifetimes. The second pillar of investing in future generations is protecting our non-renewable assets, including like fossil fuels, minerals, fresh water, and other resources that cannot be replenished on human timescales. In our current economic system, these assets are often discounted for future use. I'm an economist by training. We start our first class in the classroom, teaching us how to discount the value of assets for future use. We extract them at record rates, burn them for energy, and discard them without a second thought because they are cheap. They are convenient, right? And profitable in the short term. But this approach comes with a great opportunity cost. We are depleting the resource base that future generations need to survive and thrive. Imagine if your grandparents had spent your entire inheritance on luxury goods, leaving you with nothing. That's exactly what we're doing to future generations when we overexploit non-renewable resources. And these resources aren't ours to squander. They are the trust fund, in a sense, passed down from previous generations that we are obligated to protect and pass on. Investing in the future means rejecting the short-term discounting of non-renewable assets. It means asking, how can we use these resources responsibly today without compromising the ability of tomorrow's generations to meet their own needs? How can we transition to renewable alternatives so that non-renewable resources are preserved for critical uses that aren't be replaced? These are not just environmental questions. They are questions of intergenerational justice. The third pillar I'm going to talk about is to reimagine our economic model. I don't know how many economists are sitting in the room. For decades, we're equated growth with progress, measuring success by something like GDP growth, corporate profits, and material consumption. But this model is costly, unsustainable, and incompatible with planetary survival. The current system is fueled by fossil fuel consumption, unregulated resource extraction, and a disregard for ecological limits. And the consequences are very clear. Rising global temperatures, melting ice caps, deforestation, biodiversity loss, and the breach of multiple planetary boundaries. The 9 planetary boundaries that are well identified by leading scientists are the Earth's safe operating space for human survival. So investing in future generations require a paradigm shift that I will talk about soon. From growth at all costs to sustainable, low-carbon economies that operate within planetary limits. This is not about the sacrifice prosperity. It's about redefining it. Prosperity isn't being measured by how much we extract, consume, or produce, but by how well we support human well-being, protect the environment, and ensure intergenerational equity. Countries around the world are already starting to make this shift. We're seeing investments in renewable energy, circular economies, and sustainable agriculture, for example. We're seeing cities redesigning themselves to be more livable, more resilient, and less resource intensive. But we need to go further, faster, and we need a common framework to guide us. And this brings me to the 4th pillar, which I will emphasize for my talk today. Turning our intent into action with innovative, data-driven tools. Because good intentions alone are not enough. We need a way to measure our progress, identify our blind spots, and make evidence-based decisions that align with our intergenerational goals. That's why Peking University, where I work, recently launched the project called Planetary Health Access System, or PHAS, a groundbreaking AI-driven platform that serves as a digital compass for human sustainable development. Unveiled as a global public good in November 2025, PHAS integrates 4 core axes: human health, species health, environmental health, and societal health that are quantified by over 48,000 key variables to dynamically track the very first time the human footprints against the planetary boundaries. What makes PHAS truly transformative is its holistic, solution-oriented design rooted in intergenerational equity and planetary limits. Let me share 5 key differences between PHAS and the traditional models. First, cross-domain integration. Unlike legacy systems that isolate health and environmental metrics, PHAS links all 4 axes to reveal complex intergenerational dependency. For example, it can show very quickly and comprehensively how over-extracting water for industry impacts not just the freshwater scarcity, which is part of the environmental health, but also increases the risk of waterborne diseases which is part of human health, and threats, wetland biodiversity, which is part of the species health. And these connections are often invisible in fragmented tools, but they are critical to making informed decisions. Second, comprehensive data utilization. PHAS harnesses global open data from satellite images to medical records, from species migration tracks to economic indicators to eliminate blind spots. Its AI algorithms ensure data quality and coherence for far beyond what traditional statistical model and other AI models can achieve, giving us a complete, real-time picture of our planetary health. Third, actionable guidance. Many tools stop at identifying risk. They tell us what's wrong, but not how to fix it. PHAS goes beyond. It delivers policy-ready insights, such as fair allocation of planetary boundary responsibilities via cooperative game methods to turn insights into practical plans. It doesn't just ask what if, it asks what now. Fourth, intergenerational equity in resource allocation. Unlike conventional tools that discount the value of non-renewable resources for future use, PHAS treats resource allocation between generations as an equitable endeavor. It ensures that our current consumption doesn't prioritize short-term gains over the long-term viability of non-renewable assets, turning the trust fund idea into measurable and actionable principle. Fifth, planetary boundary constraint analysis. PHAS embeds the 9 planetary boundaries as non-negotiable constraints in its modeling. It analyzes our current resource use through the lens of the Earth's safe operating space, helping us avoid transgressing ecological limits that underpin intergenerational survival. Since its launch, PHAS has rapidly gained global traction. It was officially released at the 2025 World Health Summit in Berlin, and we've already established partnerships with the WHO Hub for Pandemic Preparedness, the Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research, London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine, the Charité Berlin, and the Chinese Academy of Sciences, where our teams are actively exploring collaborative initiatives to apply PHAS in planetary health analysis. I hope in the future we can work with UNICEF to move this forward. So in closing, ladies and gentlemen, investing in future generations is a survival imperative. It requires us to transcend short-term gains, value non-renewable assets as irreplaceable trust funds, and align our economies with the planetary limits. And it requires us to embrace innovative tools such as PHAS that turn aspirations into measurable progress. We stand at a critical crossroads. The choices we make today will determine whether Homo sapiens thrives or merely survives. Future generations will judge us by the world that we leave them, a world that's healthy, equitable, and sustainable. So let's choose to invest in their future, which is our topic today. knowing our legacy is inseparable from theirs. Let's act with courage and foresight, so that Homo sapiens continues to thrive, not just survive. Later, if time permits, you are most welcome to watch the 9 minutes long video clip. But I'll leave that to Henry. Henry, thank you.
Thank you, Professor Guoen, of course, for your very also comprehensive and also very stimulating discussion, sharing as well. So thank you. Absolutely, we could later after Q&A we could start that. But so we have some time for the Q&A, and if any guests have questions for Madame Sande and also Professor Liu, please raise your hand. Oh, yeah, Ambassador from yeah, please, Fiji. Yeah, 给个话筒. Yeah.
I think I'll just sit and because I need to look at what I've scribbled on this piece of paper, and sometimes I can't even read my own handwriting. I want to make a comment and a question within that comment, but let me first thank the speakers. I was very enlightened by the speech, and that's why I was scribbling down, and questions start forming in my head. So the topic today was very, very enlightening for me. But let me first put into context Fiji. Fiji is a small country. It's less than 1 million people. The indigenous population is about 2/3, and a migrant population of about is 1/3, of which the Chinese population is less than 1%. And the indigenous population is traditionally communal in structure, and the resources of land and sea are a shared resource. It's not a individually owned resource. So it's a communal resource. And the villages, and there's 1,000 villages in Fiji. They live in rural areas. Fiji has 300 islands, and mainly rural in terms of the indigenous population. And very beautiful beaches, beautiful sea, undeveloped land, and the land is owned collectively by the indigenous. So that gives you a sense of what Fiji is. So in that context, and coming back to the presentations today, as I listened to it, China and parts of Africa, etc., and I'm imagining the globe as a country. Therefore, if it's a country, then as a single country, then developing countries like Fiji is basically the rural element of this country called Earth, right? And so the rural part of Earth is migrating to the urban part, which is the developed countries. And so this migration will forever continue as long as the opportunities in the developing countries are not developed. And how do you define opportunities? With a resource that if you can't develop it yourself, it's not a resource. If it's a resource that only others can develop, then it's a resource that will be forever taken out. So as I look at China, and I look at the rural, and these last 2 years, I've been traveling around China quite a lot, and I've been specifically visiting rural ethnic villages. Why? Because in the ethnic communities of China, I see Fiji in those communities. Why do I say that? Because in the ethnic communities of Yunnan and Guizhou and Guangxi, I see villages of 200 people to 1,000 people. Ethnic, cultural, they have a communal structure, and the village enterprise is a shared enterprise. And it's communally structured with elements of capitalism and socialism. And so to me, that's a Chinese characteristic. Now, when we look at development models, from UNICEF, UNIDO, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I can say this from a person coming from Fiji but looking back into Fiji, that all the business school models of enterprise, et cetera, doesn't capture a commercial entity based on a communal model. It is private capital, it is individualistic, it's ownership, private ownership, individual ownership. You own the shares, that's your shares. It's not a collective share, right? And so the business models are based on a structure that is in many ways not aligned with the traditional communal structure of a village. And so as I look at development models, for a country like Fiji, for us to keep our people in the villages, in the rural area where the resource is, we need to have commercial enterprises developing from that model, from the communal model. And so as I look at the inclusive development, the education, the training, et cetera, if we are to train and develop capabilities that are not aligned to the development of a village, then that capability is a capability that's marketable worldwide because it allows that person to migrate because there's no opportunity in the village. So my point here, therefore, is the development models must develop for the conditions the countries are in. And I find that in China to be very relevant, but I don't find that in statements by the international development partners of developing for you to stay in your village. It's giving you the capabilities for you to migrate, right? And so therefore, for the individual, as a person, if I came from a village, that's the best model. I love it because I can migrate. For the country, that's not necessarily the best model because unless I can develop the opportunities, I can't keep you. So forever, I'm a source of migration. For the village and the indigenous population, that is an existential risk because I'm training you to leave the village culture is gone, the resource is there for someone else to come and monetize that because you can't monetize it, you have left the village, the very essence of your being of a Fijian in a village setting is forever lost. So I look back into Kweichow and Guangxi and the villages there. If you have forever migration, you lose your culture. You lose your identity back to the mountains, to the land, to the sea. And that is a risk that I see in terms of inclusive, resilient development, that paradigm has never been addressed because it's not a paradigm that the world faces. It's a paradigm of a village. And that village, nobody cares because you're too small, right? And it's not a model that will capture the global attention because in the whole world, there's only 600,000 Fijians. And they're only known for their rugby. They're known for the rugby, and they're known for the smiles, etc. But to keep a culture existing, to have resilient, inclusive development, you know, whilst we all agree with training, education, etc., but unless education training enables you to develop what you have in your village, in your area, the more we train for a model that's based in the urban area, you will lose the cultural identity and the civilization of small communities. And I think in many ways, China has addressed that in many ways. But at the same time, and this is now where we're coming into the geopolitical conflicts, right? That China is not the model. The West is the model. And this tension is drawing small countries like Fiji, not knowing whether we're on this side or that side. We have in the ocean, we're on the land, we see the sea rising, we're still in the sea, but we're on land. And this is a strategic conundrum that we face, that we take the Western model in the daytime, we go to work, we are told we are individual, we come home at night, we're forced back into our cultural norms and our tradition, we have to share everything, and so we're going from individual to communal every day. It's schizophrenia. And that is not been addressed in any development model. So I just make that comment. Thank you.
Let me just say thank you, Your Excellency. I'm absolutely fascinated by what you've just said, because I studied participatory development, which is really about engendering development from the perspective of people's felt realities, context, but also opportunity. Yeah. So I grew up in a village in Kenya, and now I have migrated to Beijing. Had the opportunities been nurtured and developed back in Kenya, I might have stayed. But I did want to say, I think it's about the, and it's good that you talked about China, because when I think back to UNICEF's programs and UNICEF's programs around the world, those programs operate in varied cultural, political, and economic contexts. And so there is a place. I say this because I see a lot of groups come from Africa and around the world to come and study China's experience. I sometimes wonder, because China's experience was developed in a particular governance context that is not necessarily replicable when these groups go back home. So yes, it's about development philosophy, development ideology, but I feel it's fundamentally about a country's vision. Doesn't matter who the international players are. What is the country's vision for its development and the development of its own people? And staying stuck, rigidly stuck to maintaining that vision and aligning whatever international support that comes around a dedicated path of development and prosperity. That doesn't often happen. There is a lot of wavering. There is a lot of short-termism and opportunities, rather than the long-range commitment to a path for your own people that isn't reliant so much on the whims and changes of whatever international partnerships may come forward. So I'm agreeing with you, but I'm saying there is really a strong place for country-owned development and aligning international support along that path rather than disparate paths. And so where UNICEF is present around the world, it isn't about bringing a development ideology to the context. It's about supporting that country to carry its own vision forward. But this is a long debate. Yeah, thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Yes, Ambassador. Ambassador from Estonia.
Thank you for this most interesting discussion topic. So thank you, Henry and Mabel and CCG team. It's always a pleasure to be here. And normally it's about 5-year plan or party congress or National People's Congress or something. So now it's about something more existential. So a pleasure. I have a question regarding the population growth challenge. Of course, China is not the only country facing this challenge, declining population. I guess more prosperity, more education. As a result, essentially you always get a decline in your population. So with the declining birth rates in China, I mean, we hear speculation. What is the reason why the families in China simply no longer want to have children? Or I hear of many cases where people say they don't want children at all. They don't want to have a family. So what we hear is opinions, but has there been some sort of a more scientific approach, a study? What are the root causes of this phenomenon? Is there a study that one can share? This is quite significant, I think, this trend that we see. And there was a parallel. There was one of the slides about the trajectory with a 20-year delay between Japan and China. That's very interesting because in Japan, what has happened is, of course, that they have opened their country much more for immigration. Do you think China, in 20 years' time, will encourage large numbers of foreign workers? And what would that mean? What would be the implications in this case be for so many different aspects of social and even political life here? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ambassador Hannes. I know you have 5, 6, 7, 7 children. Good, Ambassador Estonia. So you are qualified to speak. I ask Professor Liu to comment.
Well, thank you for raising that question on population growth. I'm an economist focus on health, economics, and population economics. So I know the topic very well. Now you ask what causes the population growth to decline? Well, basically from an economic standpoint, can you hear me? Yeah. From an economic standpoint, you can think about the causes from, say, the demand standpoint. Why people would need the children? Okay, there are a couple of components out there. Okay, we need the children because we care about our security when we're old. Okay, we care about children because we want to continue our family, if not to continue Homo sapiens. As a result, when the modern societies, okay, well-developed social security systems to protect people, for much better conditions over time, that demand will be reduced. Number one, okay? So that is why you see, developed countries have much lower fertility than that of developing countries because they don't need it, okay? And some families like myself, I want my family to continue. So that is, another component of the demand, which is not that, decisive. Some people just don't really care much about it. They only care about their own generations, not to mention the continuation of Homo sapiens. Yeah. So just put long story short. Now, from the supply side, which can also explain why the fertility trend will continue. Simply because the cost of childbearing is increasing, especially when women can find much better paid jobs in labor market. Why do women have to sacrifice their time at home to have, bear the cost without husbands to sacrifice? So when women find better opportunities in modern labor markets, that will raise the costs of childbearing, child raising, okay? As a result, that's the consequence. Unless we compensate women's, sacrifice. But that's not good. That's not going to happen unless men wants to take care of the burden. So now. So I can simply pick these two components to explain why fertility decline would be a long-term trajectory period. There's nothing you can do about it. Now, well, is that something we have to reverse, or we don't have to intervene? Well, that, people have very different opinions. If China ends up only 600 million people, to me, I'm not so sure if that's necessarily a bad thing, considering the planetary boundaries that I talk about. You know what I mean? I don't want to talk anything more.
All right. Yeah. Also, I see Bernard is here. You are the former global health envoy of Germany, right? I mean, now the Peking University professor. You have any comments to make on the German population? Maybe, Bernard.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think especially the last question is, I get up so I can actually see the person who asked the question, is probably an utterly defining question for China society, but not only China society. And then what we saw in terms of population development, I mean, if you look not only at the number of total population, but on the composition of the population with the majority in 60 years of people being old people. So the composition, the structure of the society will be fundamentally different, I think, which goes very much to what Ama, you also said, and then what Guoen, of course, said. Now, then the question is really burning. And this is not something that you can fix with giving a little money for a woman to buy a stroller and a children's bed. I mean, I'd be very provocative. This is a fundamental society insecurity. And I think some of what happened in China, this incredible development to prosperity over 1-2 generations, has suddenly, everybody had, it got better and better and better and better, and more money and better house and whatever. And suddenly that comes to an end. I mean, it levels off, right? Because housing is so expensive, and young people living in Beijing on their own salary have no chance to buy their own house. I said very bluntly, I couldn't pay for the house, I'm pretty well established. I couldn't. Now, so that's reality. So they can only live out of their, basically, the wealth that actually their parents have made, if they're lucky enough to have that. If you're not lucky, you have no choice, no chance at all. Now, these are insecurities of especially young women. I think, why would I, take that risk? How can I afford? It's very deep. How can I afford to have a child for which I cannot guarantee the same opportunity that I may have had? Now, unless we address this, and I think it actually goes back to Gordon, what you have said. I mean, we need a fundamental paradigm shift in how we define development. Development in the past was 80% at least GDP. And today, if you open the newspaper and you look into development, it's GDP. It's just crazy. Now, it's not about prosperity, well-being. There's not a balance. I mean, unless we shift and say we need GDP, we need wealth, absolutely, that has made a huge difference. But it has to be in the right balance with the other factors, because otherwise we pay. I think that's the message that Gordon gave. And it's a very long answer, of course, but unless we manage that, and I think that is where this work will be so important, because for the first time, because we are now able with AI and these tools to look at all factors in one pot, all of the interrelations in one go, which is very different from looking into one aspect, GDP, health, climate, whatever, put it all together and say we need a better balance to move forward, because that is how real development will go forward. So I think it's a long answer, but I feel very passionate.
Great. Thank you. Bernard was also the former chief representative of WHO in China. So, yes. I saw Minister Song sit here. You were the former minister of trade in Japan for China. So Ambassador Hassan just mentioned about Japan experience. Now it's starting to import in skilled laborers and things like. What do you think about China in the years ahead? Since we are 20 years behind Japan in terms of aging population, but what about the Japanese experience, now they are starting to recruit foreign labor. So what do you think?
Thank you, Henry. I'm not the expert for this field. I'm sorry. I think both Japan and China has the same population problems about now. But I'm very glad to can be here with CCG colleagues and UNICEF colleagues, and I'm very admire what UNICEF, your colleagues, has done for our children. Children is our future. Very important issue for both for China and for other countries as well. I'm sorry, Henry. I didn't prepare.
No, I understand. You are in business and trade. You are from MOFCOM. So
Yeah.
what about Mr. Hanbin here? Also, Mr. Han was the former DDJ of European Affairs Department of MOFCOM as well.
So I'm not also in this field. I'm here just to learn from expertise. Just I'm about the how to say the Mr. Barnard said about you don't need to see only the GDP if you see the development. You need to look at all the aspects about the people's life. I think the Chinese government already recognized this. And for example, we pay a great attention on the environment, I think, the 10 years ago. Not to, for example, our president Xi, when he visited the Yangtze River, he said that we don't need the big development, we need the big protection of the environment. So I think this 10 years we see the result about this movement. I think when the Chinese government realized this problem, the government will take the policies and the measures, and the people will follow it. I think so. It's for me. I'm confident that in the future, the situation will be changed in the better way. Thank you.
Okay, so we almost coming to the end, and so really it's really a great honor to have all of you. And then I would leave the last remarks for our co-host, Madame Sande, to speak.
Let me just say that Your Excellency, Ambassador Hanso, asked a really important question. I think there are a number of low-hanging fruits. There are many for whom reform will make a fundamental difference. 138 million children are affected by migration. 67 million of them physically left behind in the western and rural parts of the country. That will be a big factor around the thinking and the transformation that makes in terms of, one, reuniting families, but also enabling these children to access services wherever they are. So that's a low-hanging fruit, and Henry emphasized this point. There are those for whom structural labor policy prohibitions, parental leave, family-friendly workplaces, being able to have support for child care, free preschooling, all of these will have fundamental consequences for how families, individuals, women visualize whether it is possible to have one more children. So there are low-hanging fruits, and we are pleased that in this particular period, China is implementing what UNICEF would call very positive policies around childcare support, around preschooling, around the child grant. Some have argued the levels are low, others have said they are high. So those will have an influence. To what extent this dramatically shifts fertility and population policies, I have to say I don't know. I don't know what the net result will be into the future, but these policies that are being implemented now are those that UNICEF has pronounced support for. And we really are looking to ensure that particularly in the western part of the country, as many have alluded, that we are able to work in partnerships to close those last mile gaps there and really address the issues of unbalanced development, the quality and access of services for children there, so that indeed they are able to not just survive, as Professor was saying, but to thrive. So thank you very much for the opportunity to engage with all of you today. And thank you to CCG for the partnership in co-hosting today's engagement.
Okay, thank you, Madame Sande. It's excellent concluding remarks. So we'll conclude the lunch today, and thank all of you for coming. Thank our speakers and also ambassadors and all the distinguished guests and all the participants. So we'll have a group photo, right? Normally, according to our pattern. So let's all come to the front.